got architect Craig Steely talking with us today. He started his firm, which is based out of Hawaii and California, in 1995 and has been creating really clever and inspiring modern architectural designs ever since. Thank you so much for being here, Craig.
Thank you.
At what point in your life did you know you were interested in architecture?
I think I got into it. Primarily, I had an interest in drawing really early and also making things. I come from a really creative family. I think when I sort of pulled it all together that I wanted to do architecture, I was up at Sea Ranch when I was about maybe 14. Saw the buildings up there, and I just it kind of gelled. I thought this would be great. I'd like to do it. I pretty much was on that track ever since.
So I've read that you took a trip to Florence, Italy, I believe, when you were still in school in college. I mean, that must have been amazing. I've got to go to Florence. It was, jaw-droppingly beautiful.
Yeah, it's funny that thing you were talking about Florence. There's actually a condition that people go to Florence after studying the art for so long, and they go to the Uffizi and they see all these things, and they pass out. They just get overwhelmed by suddenly being around this quantity of amazing art. They have a crazy reaction and inferiority complex. And, yeah, it's amazing. It was almost the first time I'd ever left California. When I grew up in the Sierras. I went to school at Cal Poly. I got a scholarship to study there in Florence. And so I went there and it was amazing. It was amazing getting to experience all these things on a daily basis, when it was hot, when it was cold, when I was happy, when I was sad, when I would be thinking about architecture, when I wouldn't be thinking about architecture. So all that stuff really just became in the background, just kind of went in really deep, I feel. Italy made a huge impact on me.
What else influences your work?
I'm influenced by sort of simple things that have a flow to them. I like architecture wise. A building that I really like is Sverre Fenn's Nordic Pavilion in Venice. It's a really strong and simple building, kind of reductive. I'm influenced by lots of things, by what I read, what I do, conversations I have.
What do you think you do specifically that sets your architecture apart?
I find it impossible to work for people I don't like or don't respect. Like, I think there's something to be said about really enjoying the people you work with and including them in the process and respecting their opinion and their ideas in a way that they're the same as yours, a way that you relate to each other. I think that's what it is.
Do you describe yourself as a modern architect?
Yeah, people say, like, what do you do? I say we do modern architecture because I think it's obvious that we don't do other types of architecture. And it's pretty specific what we do and how we think about it. And I mean, the good thing about having a lot of work sort of behind me is I don't seem to get clients asking me to do something that I don't really identify with. I don't get clients calling me up and asking me to do, a Spanish style house. If I do, I'd say, there's plenty of other people who can do it better. So I think I say it's modern just because I think that's a word that people understand. People can relate. When I say that word, people can understand what I do. I mean, I think modern design, it's hard to sort of define what that is, but to me, it sort of means being able to look at a problem and solve a problem by sort of personal ideas as opposed to having it solely based on tradition. I mean, not saying that tradition's bad, but I think modern design allows you to problem solve in a completely different and unique way every time. Not based on style. Oftentimes style comes into it, but it's not primarily based on that.
Do you think there are any important or pressing issues that are facing modern architecture today? And, if so, how are you tackling them?
Well, I think architecture's in a better place now than it's been in the last probably 50 years. After going through, sort of a rebirth, postmodernism, deconstructivism, architecture was really lost in a lot of ways. And I think it's really gone back to more issues that people relate to. I mean, I feel like the most pressing issue with architecture is I think it's better. I'd rather see more good architects doing less work and staying really focused on maybe doing less work, but less work that's really good. So I think a lot of work gets done by people who maybe their heart's not really in it, or they don't have enough time to focus on a particular project.
I believe your firm does projects all over the country. What are the urban centers or the cities that really inspire you or that you just get really excited to visit?
I mean, one of the cities that I had an opportunity to visit recently that I really liked was Lisbon. That's an amazing city. I like kind of everything about it in the sense that there's it's parts of it are run down and parts of it are very modern. The geography of it is really beautiful. I think it has a real vibrance. I think, yeah, it's strange, but it's one of the most exciting places I've been to in a long time.
Very
I
interesting.
like.
And were you working on a project there, or are you just visiting for pleasure?
I was doing a project in the Azores,
Okay.
which are these islands that are 3,000 miles off the coast of Portugal.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a slow process. It's been something that I think it's going to be going on for years, but it's a cool place. I like Hong Kong as well. It's like Lisbon in a way, like hilly. It's like San Francisco. There's like the plan sort of there's high spots, low spots, vantage points, proportional things. It's kind of confined in a way too, as opposed to a sprawling city.
But what do you do when you're not designing awesome structures? What does Craig Steely do to relax?
I surf a lot, gotten into skateboarding lately. I like to play music around campfires and things like that.
And how many people work for your firm?
Yeah, three full time, including me, and then a couple of part time people.
You've given lectures before at different colleges and stuff like that. What are the sort of topics that you talk about?
Oftentimes, I get asked to speak in schools, and people are interested in the fact that I do work in two really different places, like Hawaii and California, and that's a really interesting and easy topic for me to talk about in this. And I think what I find interesting about it, what sort of has started to preoccupy my work and the stuff that I do, is that there are these two really different places, but there's sort of this bridge between them in the work that I do. Like ideas will start in Hawaii and they'll kind of wither, and then it'll appear in a project in San Francisco and grow in that. And so, I mean, the other thing that's interesting about that too is that when I'm in San Francisco, suddenly Hawaii becomes clear and objective, and vice versa. When I'm in Hawaii, like I'll have like a really clear insight into things in San Francisco. So I talk a lot about sort of this idea of connectedness to nature as well as like emancipation from nature, like integration with nature, but also a separation from nature. Like I feel like a lot of my projects, they're in I mean, the difficult and I think interesting thing about a lot of the projects I've done is they've been in these really pristine and beautiful sites. It's been an interesting process of how to relate to these sites. And some ways, the easiest way to relate to these sites is by distancing the building from it, by abstracting it and having it be, a different object that's floating in it, or in a place where there's a lot of chaos, like the lava fields of Hawaii. There's kind of an amazing purity about putting a geometric shape or a rational shape or some sort of structural shape. I look at it in a way as not competing with that landscape, but it almost sets itself apart from it. So you see the difference. When I was in Florence, one of my professors and my thesis critic was Cristiano Tiraldo, and he was with this group called Super Studio. And they did these kind of amazing drawings and collages back in the 60s and early 70s. And a lot of them were just these really pure shapes that were in nature. One of the collages was this endless cubic kind of wall going through Lugano and these, like Lago Maggiore in northern Italy, or through the Grand Canyon, or along the California coastline. And they were sort of a critique in those ways. But as I think life is sort of caught up with that, and history is sort of caught up with that, and there is in a way there is a distance from nature. So I think they're looking back on that Super Studio stuff, and a lot of the stuff that I feel like I got in college, it's taken me 20 years to really, I think, understand it differently, and it's definitely influenced my work at an early age, and then it keeps influencing it as I get more mature in what I do.
What else is on the horizon for you, for your firm, for your future?
Oh, for the future, I just want to stay focused on doing what I like to do and not lose that excitement I have for it. We've got a lot of great houses going on now for great people, but I finally feel ready to start doing some projects that are maybe, I keep calling them non-private projects as opposed to private houses. I've seen a lot of architects mess up on that leap from doing good houses to doing really mediocre, bigger jobs. So I want to be really careful, make that leap into doing stuff that is like I said, non-private, but still has the detail that I can achieve in a house. Yeah, I think the most important thing is just keep enjoying what I do and growing that way.
Well, thank you so much for talking with us today, Craig. We had a great time.
Cool.
To learn more about Craig and his architecture, you can visit craigsteely.com. This has been a Two Modern Designer interview. We've got more podcast and design posts on our blog, so please visit twomodern.com.